Story 1. The Dollmaker's Haven. My name is Rob, and I've always been drawn to the mysterious and the macabre. So when I received an anonymous letter inviting me to explore an abandoned factory known as the Dollmaker's Haven, I couldn't resist. The letter arrived on a moonless night, slipped under my apartment door like a secret whispered by the wind. The town of Hollowbrook was a forgotten place, nestled deep within mist-shrouded forests. Its cobblestone streets bore the weight of centuries, and the locals spoke in hushed tones about the factory that stood at its heart. Elias Kessler's dolls, they'd say, their eyes wide with fear. Beware the porcelain eyes that watch you. Elias Kessler, the reclusive toy maker, had established the factory in the 1800s. His dolls were exquisite, delicate faces, jointed limbs, and eyes that seemed to hold secrets. But as time passed, strange occurrences plagued Hollowbrook. Children who received Kessler's dolls vanished without a trace. Their empty rooms echoed with the absence of laughter, replaced only by eerie porcelain figures staring blankly into the darkness. I gathered a group of fellow urban explorers: Lena, the tech-savvy hacker; Jackson, the skeptic with a penchant for dark humor; and Eva, the historian obsessed with unraveling forgotten legends. Armed with flashlights and curiosity, we stood before the rusted gates of the Dollmaker's Haven. The factory loomed like a wounded giant, its walls sagging, windows shattered. We stepped over fallen debris, our footsteps echoing through the cavernous halls. Rows upon rows of unfinished dolls greeted us, limbs detached, eyes half-painted, each one more unsettling than the last. Lena's flashlight flickered, casting elongated shadows on the peeling wallpaper. We ventured deeper, guided by the letter's cryptic instructions. "Descend to the heart of the factory," it had said. And so we did, until we stumbled upon a hidden chamber. Its walls were etched with symbols, a language older than time. In the center lay an altar adorned with dried roses and a tarnished silver knife. Eva's eyes widened. "An ancient ritual," she whispered. "Kessler bound lost souls to these dolls." The air thickened, and we heard faint cries, the echoes of children long gone. Lena's hacking skills revealed a forgotten diary, its pages brittle with age. Elias Kessler's desperate scrawl told of grief, regret, and a pact with something darker than the forest shadows. As we read, the dolls stirred. Their porcelain eyes followed us, hunger in their gaze. The trapped souls sought release, and we were their unwitting prey. Jackson vanished first, swallowed by the darkness. Ava's screams echoed as the dolls closed in, their tiny hands reaching for her essence. Lena and I ran, our breaths ragged, but the dolls were relentless, their porcelain bodies moving with unnatural grace. Lena fell, her flashlight rolling away. I turned to help her, but she whispered, "Rob, go. Save yourself." I stumbled into the moonlit courtyard, the factory collapsing behind me. The dolls' haunting cries faded, replaced by a single whisper, "Rob, join us." My skin prickled as I realized I was marked. The porcelain eyes had chosen me. The moon hung low, casting elongated shadows across the courtyard. My breaths came in ragged gasps as I leaned against a crumbling wall. The factory groaned, its time-worn bones surrendering to the weight of secrets buried within. The whisper echoed, insistent, "Rob, join us." I glanced at the dolls strewn around me, once lifeless, now animated by lost souls. Their eyes bore into mine, pleading, accusing. I had unwittingly stepped into their twisted dance, and there was no turning back. I remembered Eva's screams, Lena's sacrifice. The dolls hungered for more, and I was their chosen vessel. But what did they want? What dark bargain awaited me? I traced the silver knife's edge, the same blade Elias Kessler had wielded in desperation. His diary spoke of grief, regret, and a pact with something ancient. The dolls were conduits, vessels for trapped souls seeking release. And now, they sought me. The hidden chamber beckoned. A portal to the beyond. The symbols etched on the walls pulsed with energy. I could almost hear the lost children's cries, their anguish woven into the fabric of reality. The altar awaited, roses brittle but still fragrant. I hesitated. What if I refused? What if I shattered the porcelain eyes, released the souls? But the whisper persisted, urging me toward the altar. The knife gleamed, promising answers. I pressed my palm against the cold stone. "What do you want?" I whispered. The dolls stirred, their porcelain limbs creaking. The room blurred, and suddenly I stood in a moonlit forest, a mirror of Hollowbrook's misty woods. The trees whispered secrets, the same language as the symbols. The lost children materialized, their eyes hollow, their voices a chorus of longing. They told me of a curse. The Dollmaker's haven was their prison, and I was the key. To break the cycle, they said, you must find the heart of the forest. They guided me deeper, past gnarled roots and ancient stones, and there beneath a twisted oak lay a porcelain doll, the first Kessler had ever crafted. The doll's eyes held centuries of pain. Free us, it pleaded. End our torment. I hesitated. The forest pulsed with energy, the boundary between worlds thinning. The dolls closed in, their porcelain fingers brushing my skin. Join us, they murmured. I gripped the knife, its blade icy. What's the price? The doll's lips curved, a smile or a grimace I couldn't tell. Your memories, it said. Your past, your loves, your regrets. Surrender them and we'll grant you passage. I weighed my memories. The laughter, the heartbreak, the forgotten faces. Could I let them go? But the dolls pressed closer, their porcelain eyes imploring. The forest trembled and I made my choice. As the blade descended, I glimpsed Lena's face, Ava's courage. The dolls absorbed my memories, their porcelain bodies shimmering. And in that moment, I understood. The Dollmaker's haven was a dance of souls, an eternal waltz between life and death. But then something shifted. The forest exhaled and the dolls quivered. Their eyes widened, no longer hungry but filled with wonder. The ancient pact unraveled, and the lost souls stirred within their porcelain prisons. Rob, they whispered, their voices like wind through leaves. You've broken the cycle. I stumbled back, my mind a whirlpool of memories and newfound freedom. The dolls stepped away, their porcelain forms fading into mist. The twisted oak split open, revealing a path, a way out. I followed the path, guided by the lost children. They no longer hungered for my essence. Instead, they held my hand, leading me toward the heart of the forest. The air tasted sweet, and sunlight filtered through ancient branches. And there, bathed in golden light, stood Elias Kessler, the toy maker himself. His eyes were weary, his hands trembling. Thank you, he said, his voice a fragile echo. You've set us free, Elias explained. The dolls were his desperate attempt to save the lost children, but the ritual had gone awry, binding their souls instead. He had become the Dollmaker, cursed to create more vessels for eternity. You've broken the curse, Elias said. Now dance with me. And so we did. A waltz beneath the ancient oak, the lost souls swirling around us. Memories flooded back, their laughter, their innocence. The forest rejoiced, leaves rustling in applause. As dawn approached, Elias faded, his form merging with the forest. Remember, he whispered, the dance never truly ends.
Story 2. Echoes of the Puppeteer. My name is Jim, and I've always been drawn to the peculiar and the mysterious. As a writer, I seek inspiration in the most unlikely places, abandoned buildings, forgotten alleyways, and the hidden corners of our world. But nothing prepared me for the night I stumbled upon Mara's Playhouse. It was a rainy evening, the kind that seeps into your bones and whispers secrets. I had just finished my latest novel, a tale of lost love and forgotten promises, and I craved solitude. The city's neon lights blurred as I walked, my footsteps echoing against wet pavement. That's when I saw it, the sign swinging gently in the wind. Mara's Playhouse. The shop stood at the end of a narrow street, its windows fogged and inviting. The door creaked as I pushed it open, and a bell tinkled, a sound both nostalgic and eerie. The air smelled of old wood, ink, and something else, an undercurrent of magic. Mara herself stood behind the counter, her silver hair cascading over her shoulders. Her eyes held a depth I couldn't fathom, as if she had witnessed centuries pass. She wore a long, flowing dress that seemed to blend seamlessly with the shadows. When she smiled, it didn't quite reach her eyes. You seek shelter, she said, her voice a haunting melody, and shelter you shall find. My friends Ava and Mark huddled near the fireplace, their clothes soaked from the rain. Eva's eyes widened as she took in the marionettes, their glassy eyes following us, their delicate limbs twitching, yearning for movement. Mara noticed my fascination. "Ah, the marionettes," she said. "Each one holds a story, a soul." I scoffed. "Soul? Come on, Mara, they're just puppets." Her gaze bore into mine. "Jim, do you believe in revenge?" Before I could answer, she led us deeper into the store. The corridors twisted like a maze, and the walls whispered secrets. Mara's marionettes hung from hooks, their strings tangled like spiderwebs. She stopped before one, a ballerina with porcelain skin and ruby lips. "Meet Isabella," Mara said. "Her soul dances with vengeance. She was once a dancer, betrayed by her lover. Now she pirouettes through eternity, seeking justice." I laughed nervously. "And what does she want from us?" Mara's eyes glinted. "Your pain, your guilt. She feeds on it." As the night wore on, we encountered more marionettes, a soldier missing an arm, a jester with a twisted grin, a child clutching a broken toy. Each one whispered their stories: the cheated husband, the abandoned daughter, the betrayed friend. Their eyes bore into mine, accusing. "Why do they haunt me?" I asked Mara. "Because you're here," she replied. "You're part of their story now." The storm raged outside, but inside Mara's playhouse, a different tempest brewed. The marionettes grew restless. Their strings quivered and their eyes glowed like dying embers. Isabella pirouetted, her porcelain feet tapping on the wooden floor. The others followed suit, a macabre ballet. My skepticism wavered. "We need to leave," whispered Ava, her voice barely audible. But the exit eluded us. The walls shifted, closing in. The marionettes advanced, their movements jerky yet deliberate. They hungered for release, for retribution. Mara stood at the center, her eyes aflame. "You see, Jim, my puppets are echoes of pain. Their souls yearn for justice. Tonight, they'll feast." The marionettes lunged. Their porcelain fingers clawed at our flesh. Eva screamed as Isabella wrapped her strings around her throat. Mark fought off the jester, but its grin widened, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. I stumbled backward, my back against the wall. Mara watched, unmoved. "You can't escape," she said. "Their hunger is insatiable." But then I remembered something. The mirror near the entrance. Mara had shown it to us earlier, claiming it revealed one's true self. I sprinted toward it, the marionettes in pursuit. In the mirror, I saw my reflection, a man haunted by guilt, by choices left unmade. And then I understood. The marionettes weren't after revenge. They craved redemption. I whispered to Isabella, "Forgive me." Her strings loosened. The others followed suit. Their eyes softened, and they dissolved into mist. Mara's playhouse trembled, its walls crumbling. Mara wept. "You've broken the cycle." As the storm subsided and we stepped outside, our bodies bruised but our souls lighter, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mara's playhouse had etched itself into my very being. The rain had washed away the physical evidence, the broken marionettes, the crumbling walls, but the memories remained, vivid and haunting. Eva and Mark clung to each other, their eyes wide with disbelief. We hadn't spoken much since leaving the shop. How could we? How could we explain what had transpired within those walls? The marionettes, the hunger, the mirror. It all felt like a fever dream, a story I'd read in one of my own novels. But it was real. The ache in my ribs where Isabella's strings had tightened reminded me of that. Redemption, Mara had said. Was that what I had achieved? Or had I merely survived? Days turned into weeks, and I found myself returning to Mara's playhouse in my thoughts. The mirror haunted me. What had it revealed to Isabella? My guilt, my regrets, the choices I'd made and the ones I'd left unmade. I wondered if she forgave me or if forgiveness was even possible for a puppet infused with vengeance. My writing suffered. The characters in my novels felt flat, their motivations hollow. How could I create when I had witnessed the dance of souls? I sat at my desk, staring at the blank page, and wondered if Mara's playhouse had stolen something from me, A piece of my skepticism, perhaps, or maybe my sanity. And then, one night, as the moon hung low in the sky, I dreamed of Isabella. She stood in the center of Mara's playhouse, her strings unraveling, her porcelain face serene. "Thank you," she whispered, and I woke with tears on my pillow. I returned to the shop, but it was gone. The narrow street was empty, the fogged windows replaced by a "For Rent" sign. Had it ever existed? Or had I stumbled upon a rift in reality, a place where souls danced and mirrors revealed truths? I resumed my writing, but the words flowed differently now. I penned stories of redemption, of marionettes seeking solace, of choices that echoed through eternity. And in every tale, there was a mirror, a reflection waiting to be seen. As I sit here, pen in hand, I wonder, was Mara a puppeteer or a sorceress? Did she weave our destinies or merely guide us toward our own reckoning? And what of Isabella? Does she still pirouette through eternity seeking justice, or has she found peace? I'll never know. But sometimes, when the rain taps against my window, I catch a glimpse of movement, a shadow, a memory. And I wonder if Mara's playhouse still exists, hidden in the folds of reality, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to stumble upon its secrets.
Story 3. Whispers of the Von Richter Doll Factory. My name is Oliver Von Richter, and I'm about to share a tale that defies reason and chills the marrow in my bones. It all began when I received a letter, its parchment yellowed and brittle, bearing the seal of an ancient castle. The sender? My estranged grandfather, Elias von Richter, a man I had never met, had. The news of my father's passing had reached me just days before. His death left me with a void, an emptiness that gnawed at my soul. And now, this cryptic missive beckoned me to the heart of darkness, the Von Richter Doll Factory. The village of Waldenbrook clung to the edge of the forest, its cobblestone streets winding like forgotten memories. The castle loomed above, its turrets piercing the sky, and there, nestled amidst the gnarled trees, stood the factory, a crumbling edifice of stone and secrets. Generations ago, the Von Richter family had crafted dolls, lifelike automatons that whispered to the villagers in their sleep. Rumors swirled like mist. Elias and his ancestors had dabbled in forbidden arts, infusing these dolls with fragments of their own souls. The dolls moved, blinked, and even wept, but their eyes held something more, a hunger, a yearning for life beyond their porcelain shells. I pushed open the heavy oak doors, their hinges groaning in protest. Dust danced in the sunlight, revealing workbenches strewn with half-finished dolls. Their eyes followed me, glassy and accusatory. I felt their gaze pierce my skin, probing my very essence. The workshop smelled of aged wood and decay. I rolled up my sleeves, determined to resurrect this forgotten legacy. As I repaired joints and replaced cracked limbs, I sensed a presence, an echo of my grandfather's breath, whispering secrets into my ear. One moonless night, as I toiled by candlelight, a doll stirred. Its porcelain face cracked, revealing eyes like twin galaxies. I gasped as it sat up, joints creaking. "Oliver," it murmured, its voice a haunting melody. "You've awakened us." I stumbled backward, heart racing. The dolls, my ancestors, had slumbered for centuries. Now they watched me, their painted lips curving into smiles. They remembered Elias, their creator, and they hungered for life anew. In the castle's depths, I discovered Elias's journal, a chronicle of madness and obsession. He had sought forbidden knowledge, communed with shadows, and there, in faded ink, was the truth, a malevolent entity known as the Puppet Master. The Puppet Master had woven its essence into the dolls, binding them to its will. Elias had tried to sever the connection, but the entity hungered for release. It whispered to me now, promising power, dominion over life and death. As the factory's walls trembled, I faced the Puppet Master. Its form shifted, a swirl of smoke, eyes like dying stars. "Release us," it hissed, "or suffer our wrath." I made my choice. With trembling hands, I shattered the porcelain heart of the first doll, the one Elias had named Clara. The The factory quaked, and the dolls crumbled, their souls dissipating like smoke. As the moon hung low, casting elongated shadows across the factory floor, I stumbled upon a hidden chamber. Its door, half rotten, yielded reluctantly to my touch. Inside, the air clung to my skin like cobwebs, and the flickering candlelight revealed a forgotten portrait. A woman with eyes like amber, and a smile that whispered of forbidden love. Her name was Evelyn, and she had been Elias's muse. The journal spoke of their clandestine meetings, stolen kisses amidst the whirring of gears. But there was more. A pact sealed in blood. A promise to bind their souls together beyond death. Evelyn's eyes followed me, pleading. "Release me," she murmured, her voice a fragile echo. "I am trapped, tethered to this canvas." Evelyn's story unfolded, a tragic symphony of love and betrayal. Elias had crafted her likeness into a doll, infusing it with her essence. But the puppet master had other plans. It coveted Evelyn's soul, hungered for her beauty, and so it cursed her, trapped her within the portrait. I vowed to free her. The brush lay untouched on the workbench, its bristles brittle. I dipped it in crimson paint, the color of passion and sacrifice. Stroke by stroke, I painted over her eyes, her lips, until the canvas quivered. As the last stroke fell, the portrait trembled and Evelyn stepped out. A living paradox. Her eyes held centuries of longing and her touch seared my skin. "Oliver," she whispered, "you've broken the curse, but at a cost." The puppet master stirred, its rage palpable. It demanded retribution, a life for a life. Evelyn's freedom came with a price, my own soul. But how could I refuse? She was more than paint and canvas. She was love incarnate. The choice weighed heavy upon me. The puppet master's demand for my soul, or the eternal embrace of the von Richter doll factory. Evelyn's eyes pleaded, her touch both warmth and frost. But I couldn't surrender myself to the abyss. As the factory trembled, I whispered my defiance. "I choose freedom." Evelyn nodded, her smile bittersweet. "Remember me," she said, fading into the canvas. "Remember us." I sprinted through the crumbling corridors, past shattered dolls and forgotten whispers. The castle's walls groaned, as if mourning my departure. And then, I burst into the moonlit courtyard. The night air tasted sweet, and I stumbled into the village. Waldenbrook's cobblestones welcomed me, and I vowed never to return. The factory would crumble, its secrets buried with me. But as I boarded the train, leaving the village behind, I felt a phantom touch, a whisper in the wind. Evelyn's voice perhaps, or Elias's regret. The choice haunted me, but I was free. The factory now lies silent, its secrets buried. But sometimes, on moonless nights, I hear a faint melody, a whisper in the wind. Clara's voice perhaps, or Elias's regret. And I wonder if the puppet master truly sleeps.